that really trips my trigger. I became a skydiving addict. If you could roll it up and smoke it, I mean, I would have done it. And once you learn, you do 5 jumps that are called static line, when you hook on with a canvas strap, and it's like a military jump, and it extracts your parachute. And if you do everything right on your 6th jump, you make your first free fall, which is where you go out and you enter into free fall, and then you pull your own ripcord. And there was something about that that was absolutely the most liberating thing I've ever experienced up until that point. It was a perfect name for what it was called, free fall. It was like falling into freedom. It's like for those few seconds you've slipped away from every earthly attachment and you've broken some physical law and you were caught between the thing that holds man to the earth and a moment of like your spirit being released. And for those, you know, and then after you advance, if you get good enough, then you go on and you have longer, you go up higher and you have longer free falls. And free fall is really where it's at. Opening the parachute is a mind blower. I mean, that is awesome. When you open up, poof, you're standing there and your feet are standing in the sky and the earth is a half a mile below, and it is beautiful. It's so quiet, and so people look at me like, this man is crazy. I mean, it is absolutely beautiful, and it's such a environmental change. You know, the environment is so different. Like when you step out of an airplane and go into the atmosphere, and all of a sudden you get this big rush, and then you open up this parachute, and there you are suspended, you know, in mid-heaven. It's a big change. But it was, to me, it was a sense of peace. And for me, that moment, those moments when I was in free fall under that parachute, that's when I thought I was really alive. That's when I felt like I was really alive. It's almost that this was like, it was worth it to live all week to do that, for that moment. And if I would look at my life up until that point, everything in my life progressively got more and more centered around me. So now I had become something of an image that whether people liked it or not, this was who I was. I liked it. I was good at it. I enjoyed it. I want you to accept it. It was using my talent and my ability. I had some new friends. I had some old friends, but my new friends were this elite group of people that were called the skydivers. These were people that were, I mean, far more elite than any group I'd ever been with, more than the stockbrokers, because these were people who did it just for the pleasure. And I was jumping with the best skydivers in the world. I jumped with the national champion and the best skydivers literally in the world. And I was getting very good. I was asked to be on a professional demonstration team. And now I didn't care anymore about anything except jumping out of an airplane. If someone would have told me that skydiving was my idol, I would have certainly disagreed with them. But I'll tell you what is your God. It's what you love most. That's God. You can ask a person, well, what's your priorities? And they'll give you the right list. But I say, well, what did you do last week? What did you care about most? What did you give yourself most to? What occupied your mind most? And you'll find out what your God is. And for me, skydiving had become my God. There was no amount of money that was too much money to spend on it. There was no amount of time that was too much time to devote to it. There was no too many miles for me to drive to it. I mean, I would drive from my house out to this Amish country airport 70 miles away at 90 miles an hour so I could be the first one to get on the airplane. I would risk getting traffic tickets. I would lie to my girlfriend why we couldn't go out that night. Why? Because I was committed to that moment of freedom and pleasure. And when I did it, it just created a greater appetite to do it more. And it was at a time when it seemed like everything in my life was in my control and in my hands. Little did I know that life could change in a moment. Do you know that your life can change in a moment? And there's nothing you can do about that? And without any particular warning, it can change and will never be the same again? I did not know that my life was going to change and it would never again be the same forever. I mean, I was cruising along knowing that I had the world by the tail. I knew I could be the world champion. I knew there wasn't any barrier I couldn't break with my talent. I was jumping with the best skydivers in the world. Doors were opening to me. But the main thing was, I was doing it because I loved it. It brought me great peace and great pleasure. On August 15th, 1968, we were going up to make a routine parachute jump. We had 2 student skydivers. One of them was a man who had never been in an airplane before. Obviously, he's never jumped out of one either. And he was going to make his first parachute jump. A second man was going to get out at 4,000 feet and make, I think, about his 10th parachute jump. He was going to make a 10-second free fall. He would go out at 4,000 feet. And it takes when you make a pass like that, it takes time to get up there and then make a jump run, takes some more time. And so it was going to take some time for this particular flight. It was just in the middle of the week practice jump. And then 3 of us, myself and 2 other experienced skydivers, were going to go up to 13,500 feet, which is pretty high, and make an extended free fall. It would last about 66 seconds. We're going to do what's called relative work. That's when you go out and one person goes out and other people succeed them. And it's called relative work because you have to make your speed relative to the other person. And it requires synchronizing your speed and skill, and it's a lot of fun. And it's really a tremendous mind blower when you look in the sky for the first time and see somebody face to face that's falling at the same speed you. It really is pretty amazing. And so we were used to doing this, and so we're going to get on the airplane, and I changed places with one of the other guys that was going to go up to the higher altitude, and I was sitting on the floor next to the pilot. And for me to get in and out of an airplane was about as difficult as you to get in and out of your car to come here tonight. It took absolutely no courage. I was never afraid to skydive, and especially after I started doing it. It was just, to me, the flying was very boring and it was very long. And so, I mean, I wanted to get up there and get out of the airplane and get into free fall. And so this was going to be a long flight. So I was kind of dozing off as the pilot's doing the pre-flight, and they do all this stuff to make sure the airplane's going to go. And I'm just kind of falling asleep. And it was so casual. I mean, I had my act so together. I mean, this is nothing. This isn't even serious, being in an airplane. This is nothing. And we're going down the runway, and I didn't notice the airplane sputtered a little bit and got going again. And you wave at the people on the ground. We called them groundhogs. We called them ground. These are people that hang around airports and look at skydivers. We called them groundhogs and woofos. Like, woofo, you're jumping out of that airplane. Like that. Woofo, you're jumping out of a perfectly good flying airplane, And groundhogs, and there was a lot of wannabe skydivers who they hung around, but they never jumped out of the airplane. And they knew everything about skydiving, but never did it. And so there was always, so we'd wave at those people and give them the peace sign or something like that. But we were cool because we were going up to jump. I mean, you have to understand. We understand who they are, and we know who we are. I mean, the mind is an incredible thing to waste. And we're going up, we wave to people, and we take off, and the airplane is zooming down the runway and goes up, and we're probably 150 feet in the air, going 100 miles an hour, and I was awakened by a sound that I wasn't used to while being in an airplane. It was the sound of dead silence. That motor just quit, and there was no chance to restart it. And not only did the engine quit and we lose our acceleration, but the pilot had rotated, rotations when you take off, and pulled the stick back in a very steep angle of climb. This was a new airplane for him, and to him it was very powerful, and he was enjoying it, and so he was going straight up. But when we lost the motor, we also lost our lift, which is the aerodynamic force which causes the airplane to fly. So we're going 100 miles an hour this way, and then it's like we're being dropped literally out of the sky. So the first thing that happened is the nose pitched forward, and the airplane began to plummet towards the ground at an incredible, dizzying rate of speed. And the first thing that was seen, and this is what was told to me, because a lot of what happened afterwards I don't remember, it was told to me, they saw a huge oak tree coming up right to the cockpit. I mean, the first scene was that the nose pitched down, the airplane's just like it was released, and it was falling at a tremendous rate of speed, and what we're coming at is this giant tree. And so I imagine there was no chance to try and start the engine, no chance to try and do a crash landing because we lost all our lift. Last thing I remember is the pilot turned to me and said, "That's it, we're going down." And we hit that tree at that rate of speed. I was thrown forward. Tremendous crash impact. We hit that tree right. Fortunately, we did not hit head on, but we hit right where the wing is joined to the fuselage. This was a Piper Cherokee 6, a 6-passenger aircraft. We had removed all the seats except the pilot's seat. And I was sitting on the floor next to the pilot. When we hit that tree, I was thrown forward, and my face stopped my body going 100 miles an hour. Then the airplane cartwheeled on its wings, and there's a picture of the airplane. I think, David, you want to pass it around? I've never had one like this before. And it slammed into the ground, then belly side up. It was obviously a devastating crash. There was shock and confusion going on. The 2 student skydivers were both injured and dazed and stuck in the baggage door, didn't really know what was going on. The third man kind of pushed them through the baggage door, and they took off running. The fourth man, who should have been the first out of the airplane, was just regaining himself from being thrown in the back of the airplane after the impact, and was turning the corner to go out of the airplane, and he saw me moving and the pilot moving, and naturally assumed we were on our way out. As he was leaving, a fire just then started, and as he was just a few yards away, the plane just went up in flames, and he heard screaming. and realized that two people were